Tala Falava, and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. As you all know, I like to be intentional when it comes to inviting people to talanoa and share space. I am very excited to introduce today's guest because it's the first time we've had someone from this particular industry on our show. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her story and journey, and hopefully it will offer some encouragement for others who might be interested in pursuing this career pathway. Our guest is currently based in London and she's the Director of Cultural Innovation at Cashmere Agency. It is my honor to welcome to the show Lani Tuitasi. Woohoo! What's up, sis? How are you?
I love this energy. I love this vibe, sis. Hello, Rosa. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. But I have to ask, is that like I always hear things about London or England being like in wintertime, it goes dark real quickly, but I see
Yes.
light in the background. Or is that just like a
It is been a beautiful day
oh,
today. Yes, it's been sunny. I think that in London, they purposely lie to people that it's so
oh,
dark and gloomy to make to protect the space because my experience living here, it's been so nice. Of course, there are rainy days. Of course, like there are like weeks where there's not a lot of sun, but we have that in all parts of the world. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful day today. I'm excited to hop on and chat with you.
before we get into our talanoa, I like to ask guests to share just a brief introduction, maybe shout out your uh, village or your people.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sis.
Yeah, well, what up, y'all? My name is Lani Tuitasi, and so I am Samoan-American. So on my dad's side, he comes from American Samoa, island of Tutuila, a village of Malailoa, and then my mom is European American, and so I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm a Midwest girl at heart. And I lived there. I went to college at University of Missouri Columbia, aka Mizzou. So stayed in the Midwest until I graduated. Went to LA. So I was living in LA, working in advertising and marketing, that industry, for 8 years. And then I just decided to sell everything I own. My
Wow.
apartment, my car, my furniture, a lot of my clothes, my sneakers, which there were a lot of them, and wanted to move around, be free, travel, especially in this era of remote working, where a lot of us, if we have the privilege to work at jobs that allow us to remote work, um, I had took advantage of that. And so I then moved around. I was in Denver for a little bit, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, back where my parents are still at. And then I decided I want to try to leave the country, move somewhere new, similar to you, Rosa.
Oh,
And so I moved to London. I'm very fresh, very new. I moved here over the summer 2023. And now that's 2024. It's a new year, and I'm still loving it.
wow. That I have so many questions. But
Yeah,
before I jump into that chapter, that yeah, pretty much still new chapter of your life journey, I need to rewind. I need to take us back
yeah.
because advertising, like, I mean, as a child, like, what kind of creative passion passions were you into? What I mean is, like, how do you start thinking advertising is for me? Was it something that you're naturally just a creative child? Uh, you finished high school, you took that path, or is it something that you're always kind of like, this is the dream job? Yeah.
So I remember the moment where I was introduced to advertising, and it was actually a film, What Women Want, with Mel Gibson, Helen Hunt. Have you watched it
I
before?
have, I have.
It's the one where Mel
Roses.
Gibson was in advertising. He's a creative director, and he tries to understand what women want in order to get them to buy things, essentially.
Mm,
It was when they were pitching Nike in that movie. It was the Nike women's running division, and
mm,
it was the pitching. So it was when he was up there pitching the woman running down the road, and it was all it was the first time where I wanted to be in advertising. I even understood what it was. And then Helen Hunt's character, her pitching like boards, like commercial boards, and just that selling and the creativity along it when they're like brainstorming of ways to talk to Nike. And that really unlocked something in me. Also, it was based in Chicago, and that's one of my favorite cities in the world. And so my whole dream was to go work at an ad agency in Chicago or someplace like that, to be just like them in a sense, but do it my own way. That's what got me into the industry. I went from there, and then in middle school, high school, I was in clubs that were marketing clubs. I know I'm like a 5'10" Samoan girl, so everyone wanted me to play volleyball, basketball, softball, and I did. Like I played softball, but it was advertising that I saw as more of my sport, like athlete. You know what I mean? I love pitching. And so early on, like in high school, I was entering competitions to where I was pitching ad campaigns and these mock ad campaign competitions.
Wow.
And that's where it happened for me. I love being in a room and selling and pitching ideas, creative ideas that I think can impact the world, not just sell product. And that from there on, and in college, I did 4 years of ad competitions. So,
Wow.
and I don't think a lot of people know that that's an
It's a
option.
thing. Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah, because we see our people playing football, like American football or rugby and stuff like that. I'm like,
Natural athletes,
yeah,
right?
like that type of athlete. But then there's the mind athletes. There's the selling athletes. That's kind of where I position myself more so.
Wow.
Marketing as a sport.
So naturally, you became a very confident public speaker. What about the artistic side of the pitching, or were you like? I imagine you as this like teenager, you've got your friends around you all contributing the different aspects of the pitch. Were you the speaker, or do you also have the artistic side, that creative? I don't know.
Yeah, so in advertising, you're commonly separated as there's the creative team, so like writers, art directors, designers, art director, and then there's the accounts team, so account directors, strategists, so strategy directors. And I came up through creative, and so yes, very much so. I like in high school, I would come up with concepts, ideas, and have all my friends help me in bringing them to life. I would shoot them like the photography for it. I love editing. And so in college, my emphasis, I went to journalism school, and within journalism school, you can do strategic communications or advertising. And I focused on art direction. And so I did a lot of the art direction for print ads, editing, all of it. Like, so Photoshop is, one of my skills. I love photoshopping things. And yeah, Illustrator, the whole Adobe suite. So it was really started with creative, but then I went into strategy, which is a bit of a different pivot, but still very creative field.
Yeah, because your job, so you work at Cashmere Agency. Like, can you tell us the story about how you got to that agency? Like, you're working your way through, probably perhaps interning. Was that like the goal in terms of advertising?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I'm that stubborn, but other people might say I'm stubborn. There was only one agency that I wanted to work for coming out of college, university, and that was Crispin Porter and Boguski. They were one of the biggest agencies when I grew up. They were the ones that were winning all the awards, that they were on the map for me. And so I only wanted to work at CPB, as we shorten it to. And they're based in Boulder, Colorado, but have an office in LA. And I interviewed at a few different places, but I was persistent on working at this agency. I then was so persistent. I turned down some other offers at other agencies coming out of college. I graduated with no job lineup. My parents
Wow.
thought I was crazy. They were like, please just like accept the job that's in St. Louis, and so you can at least start your career. And I was very stubborn and said, no, I want to work at this agency. I want to work at Crispin Porter. Um, Luckily, I begged. I was like, I'll clean your floors. Just like, please hire
Wow.
me. Um, and I cannot believe they accepted an internship position, or I accepted an internship position with them in strategy. So it was outside of
Mm.
come up that or trajectory I was on, but I loved strategy as well. I'd had an internship with strategy at a previous agency, and strategy I would define as it's uncovering the human insights, the cultural insights that drive and set up the ad campaign, and that's tee up the idea. And so it's more about human understanding and more about diving into culture and surfacing these like really interesting insights. And so I got an internship within that realm, strategy at Crispin Porter. And then I quickly learned that I wanted to work at an agency that was focused on championing culture, the culture, diversity, representation, because so much of culture today, fashion, music, beauty, sports, comes from communities of color around the world across
Mm.
the diaspora. So I understood at this point in my career, oh, for the culture. Like I want to do creative work and within advertising and marketing campaigns that are moving culture forward in some way, creating cultural impact, larger messaging rather than just like product shots of tacos or
Mm.
vehicles like auto vehicles driving down a mountain. You know that I'm talking about. Like I wanted like larger purpose driven culture marketing. And luckily I found Cashmere and I felt
Mm.
like it was a very strong connection from the very beginning, just because of our shared vision of creating work that is putting on the culture. So every chance
Mm.
that we're engaging with, different communities and, the things that we're passionate about and letting us be passionate about those things, giving them a platform, giving them a budget because it's not free. And so
Mm.
being able to connect brand money down to communities. And so that's how I found myself at Cashmere and have been there for 5.5 years now and continue to, um, just create cultural strategies. So it kind of shifted from,
Mm.
like art direction, creative, working at a big uh, global agency like Crispin Porter and within strategy to then like more specific cultural strategy.
Yeah, I absolutely loved when I was researching when I was researching for this talanoa for our podcast, I looked up the agency and okay, I have to say in this day and age of like where people are just throwing out buzzwords. Now I work in education, so diversity, inclusion, these are buzzwords that institutions and organizations are throwing out there only for you to go on the website and go, huh? I don't see diversity in the key positions of this organization or in
Yeah.
this institution. But can I just tell you, when I looked up your agency, I was like, oh, okay, we see. I was impressed. So that was the first thing. I was just like, oh, really living to what, like walking the walk, talking the talk, doing, it's not just about the words, but actually showing through the faces that, hey, diversity is here. And I was like, okay, I didn't know anything about advertising, but I was impressed because as an educator, that's so common. You look up all these like educational organizations and it's just like, but you're talking about diversity, but there's no diversity in, these key positions in the organization. So I just want to shout out your agency, say, I love it. Absolutely. So cool. And I can imagine like you working there, of course it's gonna motivate you and really, you know, have you out there go, I love my job, you know, the people I work with. I was wondering, so let's talk about director of cultural innovation. I listened to your podcast with Asians in advertising, I think,
Yeah.
and you talk about cultural strategist. And I was just like, oh, that's a term. Okay. I had not heard that before. Did some Googling. What does this mean? Looked it up. And yeah, I mean, what does your job, are you the, do
Mhm.
things, is it like there's a letter, things come to you and you check off at the final point of a campaign? Are
Mhm.
you right in the middle of the campaign, with the
Yeah,
different, I don't know, members of your team? Like, tell us a little bit about your role.
absolutely. Yeah, first off, I appreciate that. Yeah, all those kind words about Cashmere and the work that we're doing. Yeah, when it comes to cultural strategy, it is very specific. And it comes down to, a cultural strategist is someone who solves a brand problem, a business problem, but in a way that also creates cultural impact of some sort. That's my rough definition of it. So, for
Mm,
example, I'll have a variety of different clients, and the cultural strategist starts at the very beginning. So, I get to know the client and what is their business problem? What is their brand issue? We want to sell X amount of tacos by the end of 2025. We want to sell these many luxury vehicles
mm,
by this time. And so that's the challenge. So I dissect the challenge and then I go, all right, how do we do that? How do we move business forward by moving culture forward? And that means, okay, how do we do something within fashion that is really interesting and putting on different fashion designers across cultures throughout the world, across the diaspora? How do we do something in music that's more meaningful? Because, oh my God, every client these days, they want to do something in music. They want a
mm,
sports strategy. Like because they want to be culturally relevant. And we can make you culturally relevant, but their worlds are so different than and it's interesting because it's different in the US than it is in the UK, and it's very different in other markets around the world as well. Like what culture is and how you define culture is such a big conversation that I have no idea how. Everyone has their own definition of it, which is what's so special about culture. And the cultural strategist then works with creative teams, and so I'll create a brief that services these human insights, these cultural insights around fashion or music or sports, or like broader than that. And then I'll work with a creative team on, okay, this is what we need to do. The dream outputs are things like Louis Vuitton working with Pharrell on a collection and
mm,
engaging all of hip hop, and doing these powerful statement moves, and doing something different in these very traditional industries. So luxury fashion, for example, is so systemically flawed. It is still
mm,
servicing only a small group of older white people, essentially. And
mm,
so being able to break down doors, do things differently in a similar way Virgil Abloh did with Off-White, going into these spaces and industries that previously weren't meant for us. And not only doing that and changing the playbook of traditional industry, but completely shifting culture, inspiring people around the world like, hey, you can do this. Look what Virgil did in the fashion
mm,
industry. You can do that too. And so that's always the goal. And brands just don't know how to do it. And that's fine. And that's why they need cultural strategists
mm,
like me and my teams at Cashmere to be able to help them navigate the culture, find their cultural space where they can show up credibly. And then we do really creative things with partners that are actually of the community. I think of it a lot of the times, just being transparent. It's kind of like a Robin Hood situation to where you
mm,
have big brands with all these big budgets and money. And it's like, okay, how can I take that and put it directly back into the culture to have strike more of this reciprocity, more of this balance between culture and consumers, and then these massive billion-dollar corporations, because there's such a terrible misbalance between the two. And so being able, like a cultural strategist is able to evaluate the situation, assess the different agendas and needs of the consumer, the culture, and the brand, the business, and bring it together to create really, yeah, just creative solutions that
mm.
really inspire people.
It's so interesting. I'm like listening to you and I'm like, question. It's so interesting. And I was wondering when you mentioned, how brands these days doing things to be relevant. And that's where perhaps that's where some of the problems come in. And I was wondering, is that where you get things like uh, issues with cultural stereotypes or cultural appropriation? Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, man, in your field of work, like, I imagine, man, there must be a
Yeah.
lot of that, especially thinking about these big organizations, their clientele, the people who run the organizations, very dominant culture. I'll stop there and let you continue. But yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Oh, it's like a very big truth that whenever brands are about to get canceled or are getting canceled, they'll come to a place like Cashmere where we help them navigate, okay, this is how you messed up. This is
Mm,
what you need to now understand. We educate. I think of myself very much as like a culture educator, uh, cultural therapist sometimes, helping them understand, okay, understand how your organization is flawed in XYZ ways. This is why when you came into culture, it was responded with backlash. And then this is what we need to
mm,
do to move forward. There's a lot of money in that because the knowledge that we have of understanding culture is
mm,
so not everyone has it that are running these massive businesses. And so there's a value proposition there. And absolutely, I've had really hard conversations with people at brands around the world and helping them figure out how to navigate. And what I realized, and this kind of goes back to my own personal journey, is a lot of these brands, when they go into the culture, they're very culturally insecure. So they
mm,
don't know who they are. And then when they come into a space that they don't know and they do something culturally insensitive, cultural appropriation, a lot of them don't even know what that is. They don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so I've
mm.
had practice a lot of empathy over the years because I it's easy to get mad, and I trust me, I get big bad, big yeah, and but I've had to hand in hand work with my clients and understanding, okay, uh, this, I don't exactly say you're culturally insecure, but they
Mm,
are coming from a place of cultural insecurity. They're scared now, especially in this cultural climate that we're in, where we have social media, we hold brands accountable, and they should
mm,
be accountable, but they aren't set up always to add value to culture. They're set up to take from culture. And so, and just thinking about everything from a decolonization lens, that is how I view my work is, and that's kind of what I mean when I'm referencing Robin Hood is,
mm,
okay, you can come into culture, but you best show up right and you best show up educated before you do and with the right people. And that is so much of my job. And
mm,
then my goal is that after a brand gets canceled or messes up, does something really culturally appropriative, um, or tokenizes culture, there's so much corruption in that that just makes sense with the way the world is.
mm,
Uh, and that my goal is for them to increase cultural confidence, to become a more confident brand that is adding value by impacting culture for the better, more positively. That also goes with hiring more diverse
mm,
people, because the more diverse people that work at these brands and organizations, the better the output's going to be, the stronger. And guess what? When you actually have good intention of coming into culture, you sell more product. So
mm.
it's a win, but a lot of the times they don't get that, and their ways of making money aren't the most ethical. So that is, always every day. That's top of mind.
Mm.
I try to help my brands do.
I was wondering, as a Samoan American woman, um, I hear you use terms like decolonization, decolonize. I hear you talking about diversity, and I'm thinking about your own heritage and knowledge of your culture and what you're bringing to the table. Like, how do you take that, and how does it strengthen you and empower you to always turn up and do it for the culture? Like, how does that, yeah, how has your background and heritage really impacted what you do? Sorry, I asked this question because I'm listening to you, and the work you do is impactful. It's advocacy. You know, we talk about on here all the time. The work you're doing is advocacy work,
Yeah.
for real. So, yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a classic case of your traumas become your superpowers. And
Mm,
the it's the bat to Batman. I like to think of it that way. To where, being mixed Samoan, European, growing up in America, not only just any part of the US, it was a suburb of Missouri, which was 97% white, and being mixed white and Samoan. And I'm also an only child. And so I have a lot of cousins, tons of cousins, like we all do.
mm,
Um, but when I would go to school, it wasn't like there were a lot of Samoan kids running around. You know what I mean? Like the only Samoans I really had in touch with were my family and my cousins at home, and not a lot of them even lived with me. And so I was a very ambitious child. I'm very confident, and I got that like very young. But I went through a lot of cultural identity work, obstacles when it came to my cultural identity. I'm too Samoan for the white kids, too white for the
mm,
Samoan kids. It's this interesting middle ground where I was a constant gray area. And it took me years to even have the language to understand that that's how I was feeling. A lack of belonging and understanding of who I'm a part of, who I am. And I had like a lot of instances growing up to where I felt othered and didn't understand quite, um, yeah, what community I
mm,
felt a part of. Like I'd feel so insecure at a lot of mostly like Samoan events, especially like funerals and weddings. And now it's a whole different story. But back then, I went through a big journey of, okay, how do I build my cultural confidence? It was just insecure with who I was culturally. And then it's interesting because this journey, which has persisted my entire life and continues to, as I get older, then ran parallel to my advertising journey. And so I always knew I wanted to go into advertising. I knew I wanted to pitch and sell things, and I like felt a joy in that. And it wasn't until probably 2020, 2021 when I had a big healing era. And and this is where I can bring up some books that deeply impacted me in this journey. Um, it's funny. I was like coming off of a breakup, and like anytime you're coming off like big moments like that,
mm,
it's like you start to look inward. And I wasn't dating for a year. It wound up being like a year and a half to where I was like, I'm investing in myself. I'm
mm.
dedicated to learning about my cultural identity because I have some obvious issues here. And so I got a therapist at this point that specialized in cultural identity. And so the books that I read that truly unlocked how I intersected cultural identity with advertising and marketing. So Bloody Woman was probably the biggest one. Bloody Woman by Lana Tuitasi. Have you heard of?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So Bloody Woman was one that I read. It was recommended to me by a friend on Instagram. I'll have to shout them out after this because their name's escaping me. But it was so impactful in helping me understand Samoan and Pacifica identity throughout the diaspora, not just in the US, and
Mm,
just like understanding these experiences and how this is something that I wasn't going through alone. And
mm,
so after reading that book, then I was understanding how my traumas and cultural identity were also related to my brand's problems of cultural identity because they as well felt cultural insecurity in a similar way that I
mhm.
did. And it was connecting those dots to where it's like, oh, my own identity story is now intersecting with my work. And like those big moments
Wow.
where you're like, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm here. That's what I felt in like about 2020. It was over the pandemic. It was during lockdown in the US is when I had the time to be able to really figure out like what is my purpose, my path to purpose. And it was that intersecting with my spiritual journey. I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and that helped me in understanding just like my being as like a spiritual self, and then understanding the Samoan exploration of that, the spiritual Samoan experience. It was all of those forces coming together at that time that I was like, all right, this is my, I don't like saying this is my purpose because that still scares me to think about, like being able to label a purpose for myself. It makes me sweat, but it's helped me understand, oh, I'm on the right path. It was just the ancestors were like, yes, see, you're going down the right path here. And so no matter what I do, everything's going to be for the culture. Everything's going to be to put on different communities of color around the world and to help build and get that reciprocity between the settler and the indigenous. Like that has always, I finally had the right language even in that era of my healing journey. So I was like, all right, this feels right. I'm headed in the right direction.
Oh, I love it. Love to hear this. I mean, whew, that was a lot, but I
Yeah.
love it, sis. I was wondering about mentors in your professional and in your personal life. Like, who have been some champions who have been there, really, um, giving you the nudge and the push when you need it, giving you some guidance.
Yeah.
Can you think of any people? Any people that come to mind?
Oh my God, so many.
Mm,
I mean, I think top of mind, like throughout this whole journey too. I mean, because there's the more like Pacifica advocacy, identity side, and then there's like advertising and marketing side, where I have how I think about it is it's a board of people that I
mm.
consult before every big life decision. One of my biggest mentors is one of my peers, one of my best friends. Her name's Ainsley Brome, who is sipping cocoa. Have you
Yes,
sipping cocoa?
yes, she's been up. Yes, she is part of the Reeds of Rossa family. Man, shout out to Ainsley. Oh, for
Ainsley,
real.
shout out Ainsley. She's
For real.
one who has continued to be by my side, inspire me,
Mm,
because she is so unapologetic. Is she is unwavering in her mission, her passion for the culture. And so I look to her. I'm probably actually going to call her after this.
that's so cute.
She's become such a best friend of mine. Actually, just a year ago today, we were both in Dublin, Ireland together celebrating St. Patrick's Day.
That's so random, but I love it. I love it. Like,
She's and just continuously I look up to her. She's been an incredible guide for me because she as well has an Afakasi American journey coming from the Midwest. We had so much in common off the bat. So I don't think I would have even be here like in my journey where I'm at without her. Um, Anastezi, as she's known on Instagram, who LA, she's also an Afakasi from the US based in LA doing incredible things. She works at Teen Vogue and, is on these red carpets at the Oscars. And
wow.
it's just so cool to see her path. And she as well is like a big mentor of mine. I really look up to her and what she's doing in terms of sharing Pacifica stories with the world. We've even written together a script of our experience, and we're all exploring film in different ways in partnership with, Lauren To'omatai. She's my cousin.
Shout out to Lauren. She's also part of the Reeds of Rossa family. Ah, love them. Love them. Sorry, sis, carry on.
I know. I love how you've already like interviewed too so many people that are so dear to me. But I helped produce Snack, her short film.
Yes.
And I mean, just through that whole experience and, the premiere of it in LA over the summer last year, met so many incredible Pacifica storytellers from the US and also outside the US, because our stories, aren't as they're confusing. Like the US Pacifica experience is very confusing and it's not told a lot on a global stage. And so getting these opportunities to have these spaces for ourselves where we can explore and bring our stories to life and then share them and have them celebrated, which was so great, just working on Snack. And so those have been some of my big leaders, my other Polynesian girlies and peers. And then on the advertising side, just too many to name. Like my bosses, giving me chances and opportunities to be able to do cultural strategy the way that I want to do it. Again, I'm not stubborn. I'm passionate.
That's what stubborn folks like us like to say. We're so passionate. You don't need to convince me. No judgments from my end. I feel you.
And so I do have a strong inner belief. I have strong intuition that I've worked very hard to heal things in my life so I can continue to maintain this sense of self. And I have luckily on the advertising side had mentors see that and then just support me fully and just believe in me. And it's like, do you know what? I don't think a brand like this isn't the right strategy for this brand. It should actually be this. And this is why XYZ. I want to move to London because I think that we can grow our impact even more outside of the US. Like, support me in this. Like, it's always been there. I've been very blessed to have these mentors. And then it's my ancestors. It's my ancestral practice that's very important to me. I practice every day. When I make decisions in my life, it's the people around me, my board, as I call them. But really, all you guys, you at the end of the day, and your connection to the larger landscape of things around us. And so, I like to say that they're the actual guides for me, if that makes sense.
Nice. I was thinking, as you were speaking and shouting out your mentors, I was thinking about whether or not you have crossed paths like with other Pacifica folks in advertising, whether it's through branding with a company or what you've done. Well, obviously you've mentioned film, but through shows or like other campaigns. Like, are we out there in advertising? Like, can I say that we are out there or no? No, not yet, not yet.
We're headed there. We're
I
getting
love
there.
that. We're headed there. We're getting there. We're getting there.
But I want people to know that advertising marketing is a great business to get into. It also pays. And so we're looking for sustaining, our lives, our lifestyles, building community. I want people to know that advertising marketing, we have very low representation, a little bit more in the advertising entertainment side. And so that's another side of things is we don't just work with brands, we work with shows and films at their marketing campaigns. So you see more Pacifica representation on that end, but not enough in advertising. It's definitely still very white male driven. Women are just now really getting to the helms of the C-suite, getting into these more powerful positions. But at the end of the day, all these companies are still run by white men. And so, yeah, we're getting there, but there is so much progress to be made in terms of, Pacific Islander representation. It's very rare, to be honest, that I see someone else who's Pacifica in the rooms that I'm in, like in just any room in advertising. But we are out there. I see it happens every so often, and then immediately we come together. Like we need to know.
Right? You're drawn to like
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So if you are listening right now and you're curious about advertising, you're listening to Lani going, that could be me. Connect with Lani Chick.
Yes.
If you need advice or some guidance, click on the bio links, get in touch. I'm getting excited, and I don't want to get into advertising, but I'm getting excited that perhaps someone's listening or watching that is like, this could be you right here. So, connect with Lani, click the links in the bio. Man, we're nearly there. Let's come together, fam. build community and get into these spaces. Wow. Okay. So then for those who are listening, who are wanting to get, you've shared a little bit about your journey in terms of what you study and then how you eventually got into advertising. What are some key skills that a person would need, or what kind of pathway do they need to go to um, university to study journalism? Is that a big part of it? Do they need the visual aspect, the creative? Like what are some key things that you would recommend for anyone who's wanting to kind of like go down this pathway?
So I'd recommend looking up, like it depends on where you're at.
Mm,
For me, journalism was the best way in to an advertising marketing program, but there's so many ad marketing programs across the world. And so I would identify from there, because what they'll teach you are the building blocks of copywriting. So, like how to
mm,
actually write the ads, art direction, how to design them, how to come up conceptually with big ideas that service brands. And so it's getting that foundational understanding. So I did, yeah, 4 years in my undergrad. You don't have to do 4 years. There are some programs that are like 2 years. There's like programs like a graduate studies that you can go and get educated on advertising and marketing. Uh, but then what I like to say is you learn all the rules so you know which rules to break. And so within culture marketing, that there's that added understanding of culture that I
mm,
think Pacifica people, just as intersectional as we are, as culturally fluid as we have to be, no matter where we are. I mean, the fact that you're Samoan from New Zealand living in Japan, that is cultural fluency right there. You got to go in between cultures and
right.
you get really good at it. And it's that skill set of cultural nuance and fluency and understanding that is what these brands need. And then it's part of understanding your worth. So you get that foundational understanding of go to an ad school, go get that. You can even do it online probably
Right.
these days. And then leaning into the cultural identity part of yourself, bringing those together, and then being able to build that confidence and guide brands and saying, this is how you need to show up in culture based off of uh, my experience of showing up in culture. And helping what the foundational studies will do will help you speak their language and help
Mm,
you, because it's marketing at the end of the day. It's about creatively selling. So you've always got that sale, but the way to get to that sale, to get to that conversion is up to us and to have fun with it. It's fun at the end of the
mm.
day, what I do. I mean, I'm selling tacos. I'm trying to sell hotel rooms. And I think that more of us Pacifica people should be in these rooms. And again, like as you mentioned before, these brands mess up so much of cultural appropriation across the board, and we have to hold them accountable. And so that I think once you get that foundational education, then let yourself roam free and figure out how you can really impact these brands for the better. Of course, I'm always here for mentorship too. And so you mentioned it before, I'll say it again. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Yeah, my info, my Instagram will be in the notes, the comments probably. And you can email me, Lani Tuitasi at gmail.com. We'll put that in the
Yep.
notes because I will do anything. I will spend whatever time. If anyone has any interest in marketing and advertising across the Pacifica diaspora, please do not hesitate because I want to see more of us in this industry.
Well, there you go. You've heard it here, fam. If you are wanting to get in touch, click the link in the bio. I will throw the email in there as well. Super, super dope. All this information that you've been sharing. I mean, like I said, it's new. I'm hearing this for the first time. It's so
Yeah.
cool to have someone of your caliber and expertise on the show. Outside of advertising, like, are you able to take your advertising hat off, your work, your professional hat off, and enjoy your personal life, or do you find it weaving in and out and you're just like busy, busy, busy all the time?
Balance is hard. Balance is hard between my personal life and my work life. It's hard to
Mm,
turn off. A lot of what I do in advertising is so purpose driven and passion
mm,
driven to where I see a lot of my work as extensions of myself, the strategies that I write. And so it's very hard for me to just like shut it off. But, I really do care a lot about like mental health and, making sure that I'm able to take that time for myself. And it's easier said than done. I'm actually terrible at it, if I'm going to be honest. I'm working on it.
Mm.
But I love traveling. I love adventuring, especially with like my girlfriends, like that, like how I was mentioning me and Ainsley and her sister Manea, like a whole group of us go to Dublin.
Yeah,
Like,
that's just too random. Like, you just looked at a map and went, "Yep, we're going."
yeah, exactly. It was like a whole
Love
squad of
it.
us, all Afakasi as well.
Mm.
And then we were like, let's just, because there's not a lot of us there, like, let's go adventure, let's go have fun. And I didn't leave the US until 2022. It was actually with Ainsley. We went to London for the first time together in Paris. That was my very first time leaving America,
Wow.
which was massive. And so whenever I'm not working, although traveling intersects with my work a lot, I just like to go to different places that I've never been, even around England, just taking a train out to like Bath or like some of these places that are an hour or two away, or like Scotland, and learning the history. And that's really what I'm passionate about as well. And also going to the places where I have ancestral history. So I have a lot of family uh, lines back to York in England. And so,
Wow.
going on these like adventures of understanding who I am by understanding these new parts of the world. That's what I hopefully am wanting to do more. I work so hard in my marketing job so for the money so I can go travel, you know what I mean?
I love that. So I was just, even if this is not on your ancestral like journey, but come with Ainsley to Japan. Like, make a
Yeah.
trip out here one day. Let us know. It would be. It sounds like it would be a blast to hang with you guys and just turn up.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, oh, we like to have fun. And so, please, like, we will go to Japan. Like, we
Let's go. Let's go. You mentioned some books earlier that really kind of like helped you a few years ago. I was wondering if you had any other book recommendations or maybe a childhood favorite, something you want to like share with the audience.
Yeah, so one childhood favorite, I don't know if this is childhood necessarily, but
Okay.
middle school, we'll just
Okay.
go with middle school, was Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen.
Ah.
It's just a classic, and it was so, uh, it was just a defining book for me. I reread it probably at least once every year,
Mm.
and it just helped me the way Elizabeth Bennet, that the main character, is so unrelentlessly herself. She like shows up in these rooms of socioeconomic status, like high status, and just like people who don't even want her to be there, and she is just herself fully. I always loved that, and the way they portray it in the movies too. I love her attitude. So as a younger kid, when I read that and watched the movies, I just became obsessed with that character. Yes, there's a love story, Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth, but really what I loved was Elizabeth and
Yeah.
her love story with herself and just the way she showed up. It's like, I want to show up that way.
Yes, you're Elizabeth.
I try every day to be an Elizabeth Bennet. It's hard out here on these streets, but I try, especially in these boardrooms I'm in. I'm like, where's my inner Elizabeth? Uh, so I would say that. And then I recently read a book that I think was very defining for me coming to London, and it's called Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. She's a British journalist, and it's a book that's personal essays that's documenting her navigating her 20s. And it ends with her turning 30. And I actually just turned 30
That's
2 weeks
right.
ago.
Yes, happy birthday again for that. Yes.
Thank you. And so that book, oh, it was so impactful because I didn't read it, I listened to it,
Mm.
audiobook style, and would be traveling around London, being on the tube, the train, the bus, just walking around. And she's telling her stories of her being in her 20s in London. And I am living right now in a part of London where so much of the book happens. And so it was just one of those books. Yeah, everything about love. If you're in your 20s and confused, read this and you will not feel alone.
There you go. Thank you for the book recommendations. If a book was written about you, what do you think it would be called? What would you like it to be called?
Something about, I'd want it to be called You Know What the Midwest Is, Young and Restless. And then,
Okay.
because I'm always about, like, because I'm from the Midwest. Like, I was born and raised in a farmhouse, like, in Missouri. I rode horses. And
Wow.
yeah, like, I was like I listened to country music. Like, I was it was like that, but then I had this, like, big passion for hip hop, and so it was like,
Wow. That's so
so and so it's like this Kanye lyric of, you know what the Midwest is, young and restless, that's off the track with his walks, mixed together with my restlessness being from the Midwest. I always knew I wanted to leave, but I'm rooted there at the end of the day. And so, you know, we went from LA, now we're in London. Who knows where we go from here? Maybe Japan. But it's just the fact, like, I think that's what the name of my book would be, because it's so connected to who I am, of like, okay, what's next?
Well, you know, if that book is ever written, I'm sure it will be. You must have an audiobook version. I'm all for audiobooks, and I love that you listen to audiobooks as well. So that's very cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love an audiobook. I'm always listening to an audiobook. And
Well, oh man, we're at the part of the show where you know, we're beginning to wrap up, and oh man, I learned so much today. Seriously, I
was it a
really
lot?
want to.
I think it might have been a lot.
It was just, I am very curious now. I know after this, I'm gonna be like Googling, like looking up things. I'm so curious, and I still have so many questions, but you know, I can't keep you on here forever. I know you're very busy, and this is downtime for you. It's the weekend. You need to relax. Thank you so much, Lani. Seriously, thank you so much. Not just for supporting the podcast, but to saying yes to coming on the show, to talanoa, to share a bit of your journey. It has been powerful, and yeah, I just know that things that you have shared are going to resonate with listeners and people watching. I'm excited to continue to follow your journey, and I want all these people that are thinking about advertising to get in touch with you. Click the link in the bio, fam. If you're curious, connect with Lani, send her an email. Really just wishing you, you know, as you continue your advocacy work in advertising, wishing you all the best. Yeah, just keep on keeping on, and take care of yourself out there. And yeah, lots of aloha, lots of love from Japan to you over there in London. I hope that you've got a good community of folks, you know, around you. Yeah, so
Well, thank
thank you
you.
so much. I'll hand it over to you just to kind of like wrap up the show. Some final words of wisdom. Take it
Yeah.
away, sis.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you, Rosa. This platform is amazing. I've been following you for a while. You have my cousin on, you have my friends on. So I was honored, deeply honored and excited to, you know, be on the pod and now be a part of the Reads with Rosa family.
Yeah.
We need shirts. We need
We
shirts.
need we need hoodies, shirts, the whole shebang. Working on it, working on it.
I can't wait. And yeah, I love any opportunity like this, because I continue to feel a part of something bigger than just myself. And so, sis, I love what you're building here. Keep it going. And yes, for all y'all listening, please reach out. We're in it together. Mwah. Thank you, everyone.